You're listening to Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Good morning, and you're very welcome to access all areas this week on 92.5 Phoenix FM. I'm Conor Williams.
And I'm Fergal Marr.
And I'm Claire Rooney.
And I'm delighted to say on the show this morning, we'll be having an extended interview with Fiona O'Leary. And Fiona is an activist in the area of autistic children's rights and the general rights of people on the autistic spectrum, and also has great interest in songwriting as well, so we'll be talking to her more about that in just a moment. But before we do, just go over to Fergal to remind you of the text number between now and midday.
Thanks very much, Conor. Yeah, if you want to get into the show, you can do so by texting 085 1050 181. That's 085 1050 181.
Great, thanks a million, Fergal. And as I say, I'm joined on the line now by Fiona O'Leary. Good morning to you, Fiona.
Morning, Conor. Thanks for having me on. And morning, Fergal and Claire as well. It's lovely to be here.
It's great to talk to you.
Morning.
Okay, so I suppose there's a lot to talk to you about today, but one of the things I suppose we should start off with, is it possible to define the autistic spectrum, or, how would you define, say, your own place on that spectrum yourself?
Well, everybody's different. Like the saying goes, when you've met one person on the autistic spectrum, you've met one person. My own personal experience being a woman on the spectrum, I feel females, are slightly a little bit different in how we present ourselves. I kind of touched that last night with you, Conor, and because of that presentation, we're often not picked up as children, so we're not diagnosed earlier in life. We're very good at mimicking and masking and suppressing traits as well, which is what my story would have been. And, I did try to get a diagnosis. I just want to make that point clear that women do. And we're often just, cast aside and ignored by our doctors and saying, oh, no, you couldn't be on the spectrum, because for a very long time it was just seen as a male condition. And even now, in this day and age, I do know women, even with daughters that are going through the similar kind of situation that I went through, where you're not being listened to, you're being ignored, or you're often being misdiagnosed. We do share the same traits as our male counterparts. We're just different in how we present, and the mimicking for me would have started very, very early in my life. From the age of 4 or 5, I was aware of being different, but I knew what to do to try and blend in, and I did that very well. But that is not a good thing to do, because you really are suppressing yourself. And I ended up with a lot of anxiety, issues, mental health issues as a teenager. And I had an eating disorder, which can be very common in females. So we see a lot of anorexia, bulimia, self-harming, developing because of the lack of support that we get, and that's wrong. And I suppose what we're about as an organisation, Autistic Rights Together, is about respecting each person as an individual on the spectrum. And when you meet an autistic person, you don't just have a stereotype imagery in your head. I have 2 boys on the spectrum. They're different from each other because they're different people and they have a different personality. The common traits are there. Social communication issues, which, I would have as well. But it doesn't mean that we're all the same. And I suppose the media have an issue with that. I feel that they continuously kind of deliver a stereotype, which I find very frustrating, because that then forms a perception for the wider public, which gets this kind of misconception, which is like a hamster wheel. It continues on, and we need to break that.
Yeah, because, I suppose one of the things that you do hear a lot of people saying, which sounds dreadful, I know, but people say, how could there be anything wrong with you? You look normal, in inverted commas, There's nothing.
Normal word. Yeah. You can talk, you can... you can walk. I mean, that was another thing I had. Is your son in a wheelchair? I was in a swimming pool with my son once. We were on holiday, and this presumption that, he's autistic, he must be in a wheelchair. And I was like, okay, that's a new one.
Not really, that's it, yeah.
No, but I mean, I could have a list now, a nice little book of all the sayings that have been said to me, as a parent and as a woman on the spectrum as well. Can you feed yourself? Is it contagious?
Oh, God.
I can brush it off, but some people can't. Does it hurt me? Yes, of course it hurts me. But, as a campaigner, I have to bury a lot of that, or I wouldn't be able to function. We keep fighting for equality, which is what we deserve. The autistic community deserves that, and we don't have it. And that's the reality in Ireland today and all around the world. And in some countries it's a lot worse than others. And I think all of that inequality comes from a misinformation, a perception that that is not accurate. And the professionals are guilty as well. They're making comments that are sometimes incorrect. We need to be very mindful of language when we're talking about autism and talking about disability in general. We need to change the narrative, and we need to be in charge of that narrative. That's the problem, is that autistic people do not have a larger voice in the scheme of things, which is what we're trying to change.
And you were saying, Fiona, you do have 2 children that are on the autistic spectrum yourself, and would they be in the Asperger's part of the spectrum, or where would they be placed?
Well, my eldest son is 23, and he was diagnosed autistic. He has an intellectual disability as well, and that would have been in 95. And
right.
So Asperger's at that time, as you know, was considered a separate diagnosis in itself.
Yeah.
That's changed, as you know, in the last 3 years, and now it's been removed from the DSM-5, so basically it's autistic. My second son was diagnosed with Asperger's. And I was diagnosed with Asperger's, but I really am not too fussy on the particular labels. I think we're all on the spectrum, my sons and I, and they are different. I mean, my oldest son would be quite sociable, which is kind of the other stereotype myth busted, that we're antisocial, which is not true. We do struggle sometimes in social situations, and I do. And it doesn't mean that we don't want to be a part of things or be involved in, social events. We're not antisocial per se. But my second son would have issues, I suppose, socializing and, talking to people. That would be more of a struggle for my oldest son. And, so they are different in many ways, but then they have the same kind of, they need a routine, they have kind of, stereotypical kind of behaviours and things like that. The common kind of traits there, but they're presented differently because they're different people. And, but they're great. And I mean, they're doing really, really well because as a family, we just get on with things. We're just a family. We're just your average family. We all might be a little different from each other, but that's good. I don't see it as a negative thing. I never did. And
absolutely not. No, it shouldn't.
Well, even when when my boys were diagnosed, it was kind of delivered to me that I should feel that negativity, and that it was this dreadful cross I had to bear almost. I've had that said to me, which it's really damaging. And I suppose that's the point I'm always trying to make, is that autistic children can understand when someone is speaking negatively about them. Whether they communicate that back to you or not, it does go into our brain, and it damages us, because that negativity is breaking our confidence. And if you don't have confidence, you won't be able to function.
And what about your own diagnosis, Fiona? I'm very surprised to hear that was only 2.5 years ago.
It was, roughly 2.5 years ago. Like I said, it wasn't that I wasn't trying to get a diagnosis. I did try many times, and I got my hospital notes actually a couple of years ago. It was a nice big book of notes there.
Was that under the Freedom of Information Act? Or?
Yes, and that was an easy thing to do, but it is my right as a citizen of Ireland to get that. So after a nice little struggle, we managed to get them, and I went through it with my psychologist. She's great. And we went through the notes together, and it was really just shocking how I was just ignored, because even a lay person could read from the notes that I was on the spectrum. All the things, the eye contact, the social issues, all completely brushed under the carpet. Why? Because I was a woman, and that's the truth, And I really feel some, not resentment, but anger about the system, I suppose, that they didn't address it earlier. Maybe I would have had better support put in place in school. So I look back on that. Well, then I really kind of the person that I want to move forward with my life instead of going back, because it's not going to help me.
And would you have found much difficulty going through the education system?
I have. I have dyslexia. I have. I'm probably dyspraxic. I've never been checked for that, but I have very poor sight. I don't think that's connected, but I did. The social elements, I suppose, in school were very, very hard. The whole thing of meeting people, classroom situations, stuff like that, reading people, big issue for me. Reading people's real feelings, I suppose. I was bullied. I wasn't aware I was being bullied at the time, because I didn't know. So things like that, and I had a lot of anxiety in my teens. It wasn't fun. That's all I can say.
And as well as that, I mean, would you have the issue with being highly sensitive to light and to, you know, sounds?
I have a lot of sensory issues, and smell is really a thing for me, and sounds. And I don't mean loud sounds. I love loud rock music, as you know, Connor, already. We talked about it last night.
Some fantastic self-pad creations that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, they're all right. I mean, music is my special interest. Apart from all of the advocacy, music, I love music, and it's really a way that I communicate. But sounds, like it could be something very soft. So the cotton wool, I can hear cotton wool. I know that might sound
not at all.
A bit strange to you.
Yeah, not a bit.
Even talking to you now, I can feel that sensory horrible feeling of it, and I've had that ever since I was small. But I thought everybody else was like that.
Of course,
I wasn't aware. So, I used to, snap my hands and rock a lot as a child, and I wasn't aware, because back in the 70s, autism wasn't really talked about. I knew an autistic boy growing up in London. I remember meeting him, looking back, and he was in a wheelchair. I don't know why he was in a wheelchair, but there was a lot of, kind of taboo about it, and, nobody wanted to talk about it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of see now, even after my son, being diagnosed in 95 and we're in 2016, I feel we're going backwards, especially with these unregulated products that we're campaigning.
Yeah, that's what I want to get on to next to talk to you about.
It's like a medieval time that we're living in now in many ways, and this is happening in Ireland. It's happening in civilized society. It's not some kind of, primitive place where people don't know about autism. It's happening in education, educated settings, so to speak.
This is actually, it's very frightening. Now, if you can tell us a bit about it, because one of the things is using bleach on kids with autism.
Well, there's lots of quack cures. Is quackery, we call it. It's a lovely word. The right
that's a polite word for it, I'd say.
It is. I mean, well, you have to be polite, I suppose. The problem is that it's back again to the perception, and we have to start with that, is how you view someone on the spectrum.
Yeah.
The lack of equality that's there, and they're seen as less than, or of less value in society, which is the truth, because why is this happening, Connor? I mean, why is it that parents can put bleach into their children's backside and force them to drink it? That's the question. Well, that's the question I'm asking the government today, if you're listening. I ran in a general election to really highlight these issues primarily.
Yeah.
And I met many politicians. Some of them knew, some of them didn't. I don't know how they don't know, because we've been screaming it from the rooftops.
I'm sure there was a primetime documentary of it.
Well, BBC, we've been in NBC in America, we've gone all around the world with this. We've, I think I've driven people bonkers at this point talking about it. I've driven myself bonkers talking about it. And still our government won't act. They won't protect children on the autistic spectrum.
And is there no legislation banning that?
We have nothing, and we had an autism bill drafted in 2012, and it's not activated. So what we're trying to do now is, I've been talking to Claire Daly's secretary.
Yeah.
The government's a mess at the moment, as you know. We're going to create a bill, Autistic Rights Together, and present it to the bill, to hopefully get them to bring in legislation, or even amend the autism bill that's there, meaning adding in a section that would focus on this element, which is something would be an easier option, and push that through for activation as soon as they can. I don't think they're going to disagree with this. If they did, it would be crazy. I mean, if they don't want autistic children protected from, quacks, then what kind of a world are we living in?
And probably sorry to interrupt you there, but the easy part, I suppose, Fiona, is regulating, shop bought products, but when they're available on the internet, it's nearly impossible, isn't it?
It's a very good point, Connor, and I have to say this, the HPRA have been great in Ireland, more than any other country actually in the world. They really have done their best, and we have shut down places selling this bleach product because of them. But it is that fact. It is the fact that they're sold online. But if we had a legislation that read that it was a criminal offence to promote, use or sell these products, that would be a game changer, because the promotion is the biggest problem.
Absolutely.
We have a man in Dublin who's coming here, who was on the Irish Mirror. I don't know if you saw the article I was part of this morning. We have a man coming to Dublin on the 20th of May saying he can cure autism.
Yeah, I want to talk to you more about that. The last Reformation.
Yes, correct. So, I mean, he can swan into Dublin with his cult, which is what it is, and he can say he can cure children. by immersing them into wheelie bins, baptising them, and freeing the demons from their body.
Oh, good God. I thought that
So
was
this is what we're dealing with.
I thought that was gone in the Middle Ages.
I mean, what's next? Is there going to be a stoning for autistic people? I mean, this is my fear, and I'm not being sarcastic, but
No, I know that.
Some of these quack cures are absolutely ludicrous. I mean, some of them might be benign, but it's the child going through that, whether it's dolphin therapy or, MMS or something like this guy saying there's demons. If my son was told that there was demons in his body, that would scar him for life, psychologically. And they're getting away with it. They don't care about the person because we're not seen as valued, and that's exactly what the problem is.
And do you
they're
think
autistic,
does that come through the whole idea of, you're not okay, so I need to cure you, so,
Fix, cure, recover, these are the words. These are the buzzwords. And yes, parents are vulnerable. I have to make this point. I'm a parent, okay? The services around here for my son aren't great, If you're an adult on the spectrum, it's even worse. It's pretty much there's nothing there. But it doesn't give me the right to experiment on my child. And any parent that's out there doing this is harming their child. Whether they think they're doing it because they think it's the right thing to do or not isn't the question. The child is suffering. And no therapy should be given to a child that causes trauma or pain. And it shouldn't be given to a child if it's not proven, firstly, and if it's not regulated, even worse. And if it's dangerous, then what are you doing? But they're doing it, Connor. They're doing it, and they're keeping them on these treatments because they hate their autism so much. That's the bottom line. They do not want a child, that is autistic. They want a so-called normal child, like you said. And that's the problem. That's what they need to talk about. They need support for that belief.
And is this guy that's coming on the 20th of May, I mean, has he got a big following or,
Yes, he has a very large following, and he has movies and books and DVDs. He was in court class in November, and there was 200 people at his workshop.
Right.
Which is a lot. And I think many of them got baptized. He has a hotel in Denmark called the Jesus Hotel where you can train to heal. So I spoke to a woman that spent 2 months in that hotel.
Yeah.
And she went out there from Ireland, and she's healing through Skype. So it's a miracle. You can even cure your child through Skype. You don't even have to meet the child.
Right, it can be done remotely. Great.
Yeah. It's a scam, and, he says he doesn't get paid, but he accepts donations, but you've got to give a donation. So, I mean, and then there's payments with to go to the hotel. This woman, I think, gave him €1,000. So it is a scam. There's thousands out there.
And does he have one shred of empirical evidence to say that what he's doing is
no, he hasn't. And the thing is, it's up to him if he has a belief in God. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. That's my opinion. But I'm not going out there telling people I can do this or do that. So I'm happy for him to have his belief and he believe in what he likes, freedom of belief, but not when he's taking autistic children or people that are very ill as well, which he's doing, and saying he can cure them from cancer or from being deaf or whatever. I mean, they approach people in wheelchairs, Connor, in supermarkets and shopping malls and just walk up to them and put their hands on them.
Completely unsolicited, like.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Unsolicited. I've seen it in his videos. I mean, what an invasion of privacy. It's just like they feel they have a right to do that because of who we are. Oh, they need our help. A pity fest, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah,
which is even more degrading. So, I suppose what we're trying to do is change the mindset and educate society, which is a huge task, really, when you've got people like that running riots. And, the misinformation that's there and the lack of support we're getting, actually. That's something I do want to touch on if I can.
Yeah, of course.
I started out, I went to college, I studied autism 2 years ago, and, I feel I know a lot about autism, being on the spectrum as well, and having experience. But I find it very hard to get a job in this area of advocacy. I've tried to get work, and I'm not being given a job. So we set up Autistic Rights Together, and we're a voluntary organisation, so we haven't got the financial backing resources to do more, which we would love.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have any government funds or anything like that?
We have nothing like that, no. Right. And my problem is that the organisations that are out there that are government funded and have resources aren't doing this. They're not out there doing what we're doing, trying to protect children and adults from these awful treatments. And I don't understand that. And we've reached the National Autistic Society. I've spoken to Irish Autism Action, I don't know, countless times now. And I want to ask them again today, why wouldn't you lobby the government with us? Why not? When prime time, when it was aired a year ago, I really thought, Conor, that everyone would come out and say, we're going to do something. We're going to lobby the government for legislation. I didn't think a year later I would be still here.
And, probably the most amazing thing that, I would imagine is that you couldn't come across a parent who would actually think that those treatments, so-called, would be beneficial to their child. I mean, how could they possibly believe that?
Well, we do. We come across thousands of parents. This is 60 countries worldwide. In Ireland, the criminal investigations, I told you that, opened last year. At least 40 families were reported to the Gardaí, to the HPRA.
Right.
So it's happening here. Don't think that it's not.
Oh no, I've no doubt.
We had a doctor in Northern Ireland who was prescribing this bleach treatment to children on the autistic spectrum.
Right.
He lost his license last November. He lost his medical license. We have a dentist who's under investigation in Ireland who was selling this in her clinic.
And has there been any criminal actions taken against any of the people?
Yes, there are. I mean, the doctor lost his license, like I said, and there are criminal investigations, and I'm involved in them. And with the dentist, there is movement on that. I can't talk much about it.
No, of course not. Yeah.
But I'm happy to come on and talk about it afterwards. But there is a case at the moment which will probably be happening in the summer regarding the Dental Council, myself and the HPRA.
Okay.
In relation to this dentist, yeah.
Okay, well, I suppose one thing on a slightly lighter note, if we may.
Yes, of course, yeah.
That I know you have an absolutely great love of music, and you've gone into songwriting yourself a lot. Tell us about where that love of music came from, and about a few of the songs, because I know I listened to some of them last night. They really are wonderfully produced and put together.
Thanks, Conor. Yeah, I mean, I've been writing since I could, all my life. I mean, I think I wrote my first song when I was 6 years old.
Right.
My granny gave me a keyboard, not a good one of those ones you get in a toy shop, and I wrote "Little Fishes Go to School." It was clever because it was School of Fishes, and
I love it.
So writing is that my mum's a lover of poetry and literature, so I was brought up in a very musical, arty house, poems being read to me all the time, no choice in the matter, and it was great. And music, I mean, I got into I suppose the Rolling Stones would have been the first band I got into, and I would have been about 5 years old. And I remember my dad playing Brown Sugar on a record player, and I remember it on a single, and it was yellow and it had the tongue, the symbol of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, of course.
Spinning around, of course, I love spinning. And I just watched it spinning, and the tongue spin, and I used to spin with that as well. And so it started very young, and I just loved, I think all my feelings projected through my songs. I find it very easy to talk about my personal feelings by writing songs, and that's how I do it. And even like with my husband, I will go have a shower, and I'll come out, I've written a song, so I write them in my head, and then I put the music down. So that's how it usually happens, and they're very, very quick. So most of my songs would be written in about 5 or 10 minutes. And
like the production quality and the sound quality on the pieces are
very good at production. We have an 8-track. It's very old.
Yeah, it just sounds very professional, though.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard to put that down, and you need imagination for that as well. So I write on the guitar. I play guitar, and then he would, take that a step further. Production is really important. Phil Spector would have been one of my favourite producers at Motown sound in that period of time. And he's probably a genius. He's a bit off the wall himself, but he really did amazing stuff with music and Roxy music. A lot of bands that have that kind of sound. The Beatles would be probably my favourite band.
I think we both agreed on that one last.
Yeah, I had a Beatles obsession. So John Lennon was kind of my obsession as a teenager, and but that music saved me through my teens, through all those difficult times that I told you about. Music was like, it kept me going. If I didn't have it, I don't know what would have happened to me. It was my friend. So I really think that music is so beneficial to everybody, not just to autistic people. We do see many autistic people loving music. My son, Dylan, he's like me. So we spend all weekend just listening to music. He likes punk music at the moment, so there's a lot of, Sex Pistols, kind of early 70s punk, and And that's what we do every Friday night. We get together as a family and we fight over a YouTube channel.
Sounds great, but I suppose one of the, because we're almost unfortunately coming to the end of the time.
Yeah,
I could talk to you for so much longer, Fiona, but you know, as we're well aware, the formation of this current government is turning out to be an unholy mess. But if you had one hope for the next few years for the rights of people with autism, you know, what would that be, or is there any overarching ambition?
It goes without saying that it would be legislation. I think if we got legislation to make it a criminal offence, these treatments, that we could be pioneers in Ireland, and I encourage you, if you were listening to me, the government, that we could be pioneers here in Ireland. We've done it last year with the marriage referendum for equality for the gay community. We can do it again for the autistic community. Get legislation, protect our rights. We're not asking for anything extra. We just want equality. And that has to start with making sure we're safe in the community, that my children are safe growing up, that they won't be preyed upon by charlatans like this last Reformation or MMS or the Genesis 2 Church, but it's happening. And they're targeting adults. It's not just parents of children these charlatans are going after. They're going after adults in Facebook groups. We've seen it online. And I just don't want that for my family growing up. I feel let down by my country right now. So until we get legislation, it's a step in the right direction, and I think we can do that. We could roll that out across the world. If it starts in Ireland, it will happen in the rest of Europe, and hopefully will flow into America and other countries as well.
Brilliant, Fiona. Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And,
yeah, it's great talking to you. I just want to say happy birthday to Connor.
Oh, thank you so much.
Birthday today.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to say that, and have a great day, Connor.
I
really
will indeed.
That.
Thank you very much indeed. I feel every year of my 44, but never
You're
mind.
the same age as me, Connor. We're spring chickens, remember?
I'll try and remember that. Listen, Fiona, thanks a million for coming on this morning.
No, it's great.
And
anytime.
can continue the fight, and the very best of luck with it.
Thanks, Fiona.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys. It's lovely talking to you, Claire and Fergal and Connor. Have a great day.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.
And that was Fiona O'Leary there talking to us about her campaign for autistic rights.